You. The resort coordinator said bridal suite like she was reading off a grocery list. I stood at the check-in desk with 2 duffel bags and one very specific kind of dread settling into my chest. Across from me, Jade squeezed my arm and smiled at the woman in the navy blazer. "That's perfect," she said. "Thank you so much." I looked at her. She looked back with the expression I had learned to read over 7 years of friendship. The one that said, "Don't you dare make this weird right now." So I handed over my credit card. Outside, the Gulf was doing something genuinely beautiful that I was in no condition to appreciate. Late October in Destin meant the water had gone that deep teal color, the kind that shows up in screensavers and makes people quit their jobs to move south. The wedding venue sat right on the beach. Palm trees, white string lights, the whole thing. Inside the lobby, it smelled like cedar and sunscreen and someone's expensive candle collection. Jade was already asking about the elevator. 3 days earlier, she had shown up at my apartment with Thai food and the look she gets when she's already made a decision and is now presenting it as a question. She sat on my kitchen counter. She never sat on furniture like a normal person, and started pulling noodles out of the container with chopsticks while she talked. "I need you to come to Priya's wedding with me." Priya was one of our mutual friends from college. The wedding was in Florida. That part was fine. "Kyle's going to be there," she said. That part was less fine. Kyle had dated Jade for 11 months. When it ended, it didn't end the way things usually end. Quietly, with some mutual disappointment and a few awkward run-ins. Kyle had a talent for making himself look reasonable while making the other person feel like they were overreacting. He'd stayed close with a few people in our friend group, including Danny the groom, because they'd done some business thing together after college. So Kyle got invited. And apparently Kyle had RSVP'd yes. +1. "I don't want to go alone and spend the whole weekend answering questions," Jade said, pointing a chopstick at me. "I don't want Priya's aunts asking if I'm seeing anyone. I don't want Kyle doing that thing where he acts like we're still friendly, and I'm the one making it strange. So you want me to pretend to be your date. I want you to be my date. There's a difference." "Not really," she said it fast. "You've met Danny. You know half the guest list. You're not going to embarrass me or disappear to talk to strangers about fantasy football all weekend." I could start. "You don't even watch football." She was right. She was right about most things, which had always been the problem, and also the entire reason I'd known her since we were 22 and fighting over the last parking spot in an apartment complex in Columbus, Ohio. I should have said no. A reasonable person would have said no. But this was Jade, who had driven 40 minutes in a snowstorm to bring me soup when I had the flu and no groceries, who had talked me out of quitting my job over email at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night. You, who had sat in a hospital waiting room with me for 4 hours when my dad had a minor cardiac event and turned out to be completely fine and still stayed until I was sure. I told her yes. Now we were standing in the lobby of a beachfront resort, while a woman in a navy blazer explained that, due to a mix-up in the reservation system, the room originally booked under Jade's name had been accidentally combined with the room I'd booked separately. The only available alternative was a standard room with 2 queens, but it was on the ground floor facing the parking structure. "Or," the coordinator said, in the tone of someone offering a very reasonable solution, "I can honor both reservations as the bridal suite upgrade. It's a complimentary offer we extend when errors occur on our end. King bed, sitting area, balcony facing the water." Jade said, "We'll take it," before I finished processing the word king. The suite was at the end of the 4th floor hallway. Of course it was. Of course it had a basket of champagne truffles on the nightstand, and a card that said, "Wishing you a lifetime of love," propped against a small vase of white roses, because apparently the resort didn't know that love was a topic I was currently trying to avoid thinking about. Jade walked in first, dropped her bag on the reading chair, and opened the balcony door. Salt air came in immediately, the good kind, warm and real. "Don't say it," she said. "I wasn't going to say anything. You were going to say something about the card." "I was going to say something about the card." She turned around, leaning back against the balcony railing, arms crossed, fighting a smile. "One bed. Not a moral crisis." "I'm not having a crisis. You look like you're doing math." "I'm thinking about the chair. It's decorative, Adam. Decorative chairs have been slept in before, by no one over 5'9". She picked up the card, looked at it, set it face down. "We've shared worse. Remember Denver?" Denver was a work conference we'd both attended 2 years ago. We'd ended up in the hotel bar until midnight, missed our respective shuttle slots, and split a cab back. I'd slept on the floor of her room because my flight left at 5 and it wasn't worth getting a new key. Neither of us had made it weird. Denver was different, I said. How? I didn't answer that. Instead, I picked up both bags, because doing something with my hands was the only sensible option, and carried them to opposite sides of the room. Rehearsal dinner's at 7, Jade said. I need 45 minutes. I need 15. That's why men have no sense of occasion. I have occasion. I own a blazer. You own a blazer. Singular. It's a very committed blazer. She laughed, and for about 10 seconds the room felt completely normal. Then she looked at the bed and the 10 seconds ended. The rehearsal dinner was at a restaurant on the pier. The kind of place with exposed beams, mason jar candles, and a menu that described every dish in 3 sentences. Here. The whole wedding party was there. Danny and Priya at the center of everything, radiating the specific happiness of people who had found something they weren't planning to find, and had been smart enough to hold on to it. Jade and I got there slightly late, because she couldn't find the earrings she'd packed, which I found in the front pocket of her carry-on by checking the most obvious place, while she checked everywhere dramatic. She'd worn a dark green dress that made me forget what I was about to say twice on the elevator ride down. We walked in together, and the group absorbed us the way groups do. Immediately, loudly, with overlapping hellos and compliments, and someone already holding out drinks. Danny's college roommate Barry grabbed my shoulder and said something about it being too long. Priya's cousin told Jade she looked incredible. Somebody's grandmother asked if we were married. Not yet, Jade said, touching my arm. That was the first time she did it, and it landed exactly like it had no right to. Kyle was already there. Gray sport coat, the kind of easy smile that photographs well. He was standing near the far end of the table with a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair, looked comfortable in the room, and talking to Danny in a way that made it clear he'd been there long enough to settle in. Jade saw him and went very still for exactly 1 second. Then she straightened slightly and kept walking. Don't slow down, she said under her breath. I'm not slowing down. You hesitated. I was looking for our seats. They're on the left. I can see the place cards. I guided us left. My hand went to her back because it seemed like the right thing, and also because the room was crowded, and also because I wasn't going to examine that too closely right now. We found our seats across from a couple named Henry and Deb, who had known Danny since elementary school, and were very excited to talk about a renovation they were doing to their kitchen in Raleigh. Jade was warm and funny, and asked exactly the right follow-up questions, and I watched her the way I always watched her in social situations. That particular ease she had, the way she made people feel like she'd been looking forward to talking to them specifically. Kyle was 2 tables over. He didn't come over right away, which meant he was saving it. During the salad course, Danny tapped a knife against his water glass and stood up. He was not a man who gave speeches in complete sentences, but he was a man who meant every word, and somehow that made the difference. He talked about Priya. He talked about the specific moment he knew they'd been on their 3rd date, stuck in traffic on 95, and she'd started singing along to something on the radio, completely unself-consciously, and he'd thought, I am going to marry this woman and also learn the words to this song. The table laughed. Priya buried her face in her hands. I glanced at Jade. She was smiling at Danny, but her eyes were a little bright. She caught me looking and mouthed, Don't. I wasn't, I mouthed back. She nudged my foot under the table. By the time the entrees arrived, we had gotten comfortable in the way that happened naturally with us, finishing each other's sentences when Henry asked how we'd met, sharing a plate of the fried green tomatoes because Jade didn't want a whole order, but I knew she'd eat half of mine, deflecting Deb's questions about when we were thinking about starting a family with enough humor that no one felt awkward. You two are adorable, Deb said at some point. He's all right, Jade said. She's warming up, I said. Henry laughed. Kyle, who had apparently walked over at some point during the entrees without me noticing, was now standing slightly behind Jade's left shoulder. Hey, he said, didn't realize you were bringing someone? Jade turned. The smile she gave him was perfect, warm, unbothered, the kind of smile that took real effort to produce and looked completely effortless. Adam and I came together, she said. You remember Adam? Sure. Kyle looked at me, the cordial look of a man who was doing math and keeping it off his face. Good to see you. Likewise, I said. He asked a few questions. How long had we been here? Were we staying at the resort? Had we tried the shrimp? The whole time, his eyes moved, to her hand near my wrist, to the way she'd turned toward me slightly when he'd first walked up. You look good, Jade, he said, and there was something in it. Not a compliment exactly. More like a statement about a variable he was recalculating. "Thank you," she said. "Even. Easy." He went back to his table. Jade reached for her water glass and I noticed her hand wasn't entirely steady. "Hey," I said quietly. "I'm fine. I know." She set the glass down. "He's going to do that all weekend. Show up just to register. Let him register whatever he wants." Easy to say, less easy to mean, I said, but still true. She looked at me then, and something shifted in her expression for just a second. Not the social smile, not the unbothered version. Something quieter. "Thank you for being here," she said. I wanted to tell her she had nothing to thank me for, that I had not done her a favor, that showing up for her was not the same category of thing as doing someone a favor. Instead I said, "Of course," and reached for the fried green tomatoes. "You." Back at the suite, neither of us talked much in the elevator. The hallway was quiet the way hallways get late at night, when the carpet seems to absorb everything. Jade went to change first. I stood at the balcony door and looked at the water. The Gulf at night is different from the Gulf in the day, darker and louder, the waves more insistent. And tried not to think about anything in a focused, deliberate way that was not working at all. When she came back out, she had on an oversized t-shirt and her hair was loose, and she looked nothing like the version of herself that had smiled at Kyle like he didn't matter. And somehow that version was harder to be in a room with. "Your turn?" she said. I changed. I brushed my teeth. I gave myself a 30-second talking to in the mirror that accomplished nothing. When I came out, she was already on her side of the bed with her phone face down on the nightstand. I turned off the main light. The room went to the color of the Gulf at night, dark blue through the curtains, with the sound of the water coming in through the balcony door we'd left cracked. I got in on the other side. We both lay there. The silence had texture. "He brought someone," Jade said into the dark. Not upset, just placing the fact somewhere outside herself. I noticed. She seemed fine. Normal. Not what I expected, which is, I don't know what that means. It doesn't have to mean anything. He was watching us at dinner. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Is it terrible that I wanted him to? No, I said. It's honest. I just didn't want to look like a thing that happened to him, like a chapter he closed. She paused. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes complete sense. I don't want him back, she added, and I believed her completely. I just don't want to be someone he's done being affected by while I'm still in the same room. I stared at the ceiling. Outside, the Gulf kept going. You're not a chapter, I said. She didn't answer for a second. Adam, yeah, why did you actually say yes to this? I didn't answer right away. Somewhere down on the beach, someone laughed. A late-night walker, probably. The sound came in through the balcony crack and dissolved. Because you asked me, I said. That's not an answer. See, because you never ask for things you don't need. That's closer. Her voice was quieter now, but still not it. I turned my head. I could barely see her. Just her profile against the balcony light, the line of her jaw, the way she was looking at the ceiling like it had something to say. There's a version of this conversation, I said, where I tell you exactly why, and things between us change permanently. She didn't say anything. And there's the version where I don't, and we go back to Columbus and everything stays exactly how it's been. Which has been good. I want to be clear that it's been good. Adam. Her voice was soft, not amused. Careful. We've been doing the second version for 7 years. My chest tightened. I know, I said. I'm tired of it, she said. I didn't know I was until this weekend. But I am. Before I could figure out what I was going to do with that, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it. Her mom. I could see the name in the light. Asking about the flight home on Sunday. Jade answered in a different voice, easy and clear, and spent 3 minutes discussing connecting airports while I lay there in the dark, becoming very acquainted with the ceiling fan. She hung up and set the phone back down. Good night, Adam, she said. Good night, Jade. She didn't fall asleep. I could tell because I knew the sound of her breathing when she slept, and this wasn't it. We'd fallen asleep in the same room exactly twice before. Once on a road trip, once on a friend's couch, and both times I had apparently cataloged the information without meaning to. The things you know about someone before you understand why you know them. By morning, the room felt like something had moved in the night. Not Jade, literally. She was on her side, I was on mine. But the space between us had rearranged itself somehow. Like furniture you didn't touch, but that isn't where you left it. I was already dressed when she woke up. She gave me a look. You're up early. I'm a morning person. You hate mornings. I've been working on it. She sat up, pushed her hair back, looked at me for a second longer than necessary. Then she got up without saying anything and went to the bathroom, and I opened the balcony door and let the Gulf air in because the room needed something. The wedding ceremony was at 4. Till then, the wedding party had brunch, then photos, then chaos. Jade and I weren't in the wedding party, so we had the morning free, and somehow we ended up walking on the beach before brunch because neither of us was ready to be in a room full of people yet. The sand was cool at 9 in the morning. The water was still doing that deep teal thing. We walked without talking for a while, which we could do. That was always one of the things about Jade. The silence never needed filling. I looked up the restaurant for tonight, she said eventually. The post-wedding dinner was at a place a few miles up the coast. They have the snapper. The actual Florida snapper, not the frozen kind. You already looked at the menu. I looked at the menu last week. Of course you did. She smiled, looking at the water. I'm going to get the snapper and you're going to get something with steak in it. And then you're going to eat half my snapper. That's a very specific prediction. I know you. The words landed lightly, the way ordinary things do when they happen to be true. I looked at her profile, the way the wind was doing something with her hair, the way she squinted a little at the water, and thought about 7 years of knowing someone, and how it didn't feel like 7 years. It felt like one long day that kept adding rooms. Jade. About last night. She stopped walking. I stopped next to her. I know, she said. I haven't finished. You were going to tell me that whatever you said made sense in the context of a hotel room at midnight, and we should be careful not to. No, I said. That's not what I was going to say. She looked at me then. I came to this wedding because you asked, I said, and because I wanted to. Both things were true and I've been treating them like they were in competition. I paused. They're not, the Gulf went on behind her. The first time I understood that I was in trouble, I said, was about 3 years ago. You called me because your car wouldn't start in a parking garage downtown and it was raining. I drove over. You were standing by your car with an umbrella, and you looked annoyed and also somehow relieved when you saw me, and I thought, oh, that's the thing. That's been the thing and I have been calling it something else because I thought that was the easier option. Jade was very still. Was it? She asked. The easier option? No, I said. I just thought it would be. Down the beach, someone's dog was running in wide circles at the water's edge, completely delighted with itself. A little kid was chasing it. The dog had no interest in being caught. I missed you on random Tuesdays, Jade said. The kind of missing where you see something and your first instinct is to text the other person. And then you remember they're already there, they're always already there. And then you think, what am I actually doing? Yeah, I think I've known for a while, she said. I just didn't want to be wrong about it. You're not wrong about it. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she reached out and fixed the collar of my jacket, which didn't need fixing, and left her hand there on my lapel for a second. The wedding's at 4, she said. I know, that's still 5 hours. I know. She looked up. Don't make it weird. I'm not the one who said don't make it weird. I'm preemptively saying it in case you were building towards something dramatic. I was going to be completely calm. You have been decidedly not calm all weekend. I have been internally not calm. Externally, I have been a rock. She laughed, the real one. The one that meant she'd actually caught her off guard. I felt it the same way I always had, right below the sternum. I leaned in and she was already there, and it was nothing like I'd spent 3 years not imagining, and exactly like it at the same time. Her hand moved from my lapel to the back of my neck, and the Gulf kept going and the kid kept chasing the dog, and none of it touched us. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. We have been very stupid, she said, chronically, for years, embarrassingly long. If Danny finds out we finally got our act together at his wedding, he's never going to let either of us hear the end of it. Then we don't tell him today. She leaned back and looked at me. Today's a secret? Today is ours, I said. The rest of them can have tomorrow. The wedding ceremony happened the way good weddings do, imperfectly and beautifully, with someone crying too early in the program, and the flower girls stopping halfway down the aisle to examine something on the ground, and Priya laughing so hard, she nearly knocked her veil sideways. Danny cried. He was not embarrassed about it. I respected that. Jade was beside me in a pale gold dress that she'd changed into after our walk. Her hand found mine during the vows, and I didn't look at her because I didn't need to, and because I was afraid of what my face would do. The officiant said something about love being a decision you make before you're ready and keep making after you are. I kept my eyes on Danny and Priya, and thought about parking garages and umbrellas and Tuesdays. Kyle was 3 rows ahead. He didn't look back once. At the reception, Danny found me near the drink station, looking pleased with himself in the way that grooms at their own receptions are contractually entitled to look. "So," he said. "Congratulations," I said. Yeah, you and Jade. It was a beautiful ceremony. Adam." "What?" He pointed at me with his champagne glass. "Don't play dumb on my wedding day. I've been watching you two since college, and if you finally figured it out, I'm allowed to know." I looked across the room, where Jade was dancing with Priya's little sister to something with too much bass and absolutely no self-consciousness. "Yeah," I said. "We figured it out." Danny made a sound that was something between a cheer and an exhale. "I told Priya, back in February, I said, give it one more year. You were betting on us? I was investing in you. There's a difference." He clapped my shoulder too hard in the way of men who are genuinely happy. "She's been your person since basically the day I met you both. You're just slow." "I've heard that before." "Good. Means people have been paying attention." He got pulled away by someone with a camera. I stood there a second watching Jade laugh at something Priya's sister had said, throwing her head back the way she did. 7 years. 1 weekend? 1 bed that wasn't even the important part. Eat night, walking back along the beach to the resort. Shoes off, sand cold against our feet. Jade said, "I want you to know that I did not plan the bridal suite situation." "I know. I just want that on the record." "The record accepts it. The resort messed up the reservation." "Jade, I'm just saying, I know you didn't plan it." She was quiet for a second, letting the water come close to our feet without quite reaching. "It's a good story though," she said. "A great story. We have to get the details right for when people ask. The details are, we went to Danny's wedding, the resort made an error, and somewhere in there we stopped being idiots." Romantically phrased. I thought so. She bumped her shoulder against mine and didn't move away after. I put my arm around her and she fit against my side in the easy way of something that had always had a place and was finally in it. The Gulf did its thing. The string lights from the venue were still visible behind us, small and warm in the distance. Write in the comments. Do you think it ever makes sense to ask your best friend to be your fake date? Or does that always lead somewhere? Because I'll tell you, from where I'm standing now, I think some mix-ups are exactly what they're supposed to be. 2 months later, Jade found an apartment listing in the same building as mine. 1 floor up. She texted me the link at 7 in the morning. With a single question mark. I called her back in 30 seconds and said yes before she even told me what she was asking. She said she was asking if I thought the layout looked functional. I said I knew what she was asking. She laughed. I'm still hearing it.